Lawbringers are not born, they are created. No knight is born with the fortitude or the discipline to carry the authority of law. To become a lawbringer, one must uphold themselves to the highest sense of duty and honor. They must be matchless in discipline and unwavering in battle. Not every knight who goes through the trials comes out the other end as a lawbringer. Only a few are chosen. Richard Blackthorne was one who was chosen. Blackthorne was raised in a small village within the heart of Ashfeld. He grew up on stories of the exploits of knights and would run around in the cornfields practicing slaying enemies of the land, wooden sword in hand, as he fought tooth and nail to defend all he loved. His mother, his sister, his home, all were his to defend, his to protect. The enemies of Ashfeld would tremble at his approach. He would protect them all, no matter the cost. When he grew into a man, Richard wasted no time in signing on with the Iron Legion, and after 3 years of service he elected to take the Lawbringer trials. To become a lawbringer, one must know the letter of the laws of Ashfeld by heart, and they must be staunch and swear an oath to defend the weak, the innocent, and all who are oppressed. To love Ashfeld and to love her God. To vanquish evil wherever it lives, even if it dwells within your own soldiers, for lawbringers are often called to dispense punishment on knights who break their oaths or commit crimes. The greatest evil a knight can commit is treason. Richard swore his oaths without hesitation, and was granted a black suit of powerful armor and a poleaxe to go with his station. After his home village was destroyed by Horkos, Richard grew a deep loathing for them. There was little he could do for his home, though, so he buried himself in his work, giving himself over completely to his lawbringer duties. For the first 2 years of his station, Richard was posted with a detachment from the Iron Legion. He was surprised by the warm reception he received. It was known that many lawbringers were ostracized by their legions for being the symbol of authority amongst the soldiers. But in this detachment, the lawbringer seemed to be well liked and included. Richard began to feel he was right where he needed to be. However, the battle between Horkos and Chimera's war was heating up. The mire was becoming a contested territory. With Chimera owning much of Ashfeld and Horkos owning much of Valkenheim, the mire was still up for grabs. The Iron Legion, in an alliance with Chimera, were asked to enter the mire and secure suitable territory to begin harvesting resources. It had been Griffin's specific order to try for peaceful negotiation with the local daimyos. The two specific ones were Imawa and Shogun. The Iron Legion would obey and began their track into the mire. To their surprise, though, Imawa was already under the control of Horkos, while Shogun was Chimera sympathetic. A battle was inevitable, and the Iron Legion was called on for aid. Before a decision could be reached, the Horkos forces pressed an attack, forcing the Iron Legion on the defensive. But Richard did not rout. Standing staunchly and proudly against the samurai of Imawa, he charged into the fray with his poleaxe, hacking through his foes like a butcher through meat. His black armor was marked and splattered with crimson blood, and the gold lining of his plate shone in the fires of war. To every samurai who beheld him, he was like a dragon in human form, a beast of absolute power and authority, demanding the attention of the entire battlefield. He received it. Storming out of the crowd of Horkos, warriors came, a pair of Shugokis, who lunged at Richard. Struggling to fend them off, he finally took a heavy blow to the head and fell, concussed and passing out of all consciousness. He could only hear the sounds of war all around him as the Iron Legion surged to counterattack. But his vision finally went dark, and Richard Blackthorne saw no more. Richard awoke, stripped of his armor, and in a small shack in a Japanese-style home. A woman knelt beside him, tending his head wound. She bowed to him and spoke in Japanese. Her name was Ai, and she was the wife of a simple fisherman. But they had found him among the bodies of the dead after the battle ended. Hearing him moaning, they had brought him to their small village in Shofun called Kawamachi. Richard was injured, but able to sit up and accept Ai's hospitality and her husband's. He asked often about the state of the battle. Who had won? Where was the Iron Legion? Where was Horkos? They had no answers for him, but when Richard was fit enough to walk, he was allowed to walk out of the village house and go through Kawamachi to see the elder. The village of Kawamachi was impoverished and small, made up of rickety and broken-down shacks and huts. There was a large river that flowed just next to the village, and there were a few boats that drifted lazily in the water. Richard took note of the samurai and was most displeased. Only a handful of Nobushi and Oromusha dwelled here. This town was, in a word, useless. There was little in terms of resource to be taken from it. Only people, poor and needy. A few children played in the streets, but they would stop at the sight of Richard and bowed respectfully. When he finally met with the town elder, he was a simple man named Yufu. Fortunately for Richard, he was versed enough in the common tongue to communicate with him. He bowed respectfully and called him the Black Dragon. Richard was surprised by the title, but ignored it. Instead, he sat down and demanded answers, and Yufu was happy to provide them. The Iron Legion had pushed back the Horkos warriors in Imawa, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. The Legion and the Samurai of Shofun had been broken considerably. The daimyo of Shofun has died in battle, and we are now without a leader. With no leader, and the Empress of the Maya distracted by engagements elsewhere, there was no doubt that Imawa would make a move to claim Shofun's territory, and now both will belong to Horkos. Astria has sent a hardened veteran to lead the remaining Horkos forces of Imawa, a warrior simply named Rowan. But none of this mattered to Richard. If the Horkos forces were massing again, he had to rejoin his forces and ready a counterattack. But Yufu bowed his head once more. "Do not leave us, dragon," he pleaded, his head touching the floor. "I am no dragon," Richard replied. "My name is Richard Blackthorne." "Your name is harder to pronounce for us, but we have heard tale from other injured warriors of you, of your ferocious battle. The dragon clad in black scales who stood down demons of Horkos. We call you Ryu because it's easier to say. Please, noble dragon, we cannot defend ourselves." "When I rejoin my forces with the Iron Legion, we will take back this province from Horkos, and you will be freed," Richard responded. But Yufu was not in agreement. "Your army has left this place. Shofun is without daimyo, and your army is in pieces. When Horkos returns, they will meet no resistance. The Iron Legion will go to other places and fight there, where victory is more likely and the rewards more meaningful." Richard couldn't believe his ears. The Iron Legion had abandoned their post. They abandoned Shofun because it was inconsequential? Impossible! Yufu sighed and turned to his wife, an elderly woman kneeling in the corner. She scurried over and procured a scroll, which she handed to her husband. He held it out to Richard, who took it and read it swiftly. It was written in the common tongue on the top, but written in Japanese characters below for easier reading. It confirmed Yufu's claim with each wretched pen stroke. The Iron Legion was indeed withdrawing. It was by no order of Chimera, and it was by no order of a Night Warden or Holden. It was the decision of the regimental commander. There was no gain to be had here. They would go elsewhere, fight elsewhere, win elsewhere, and perhaps be rewarded for it. And again, Yufu bowed low. "I cannot stop their entire army myself," Richard muttered. "They have Horkos warriors and the samurai forces of Imawa as well. Broken as they are, they will still outnumber us greatly. I suggest you evacuate, flee to a different province." But even as he spoke the words, he knew that he could never follow through on them himself, if he were to be asked the same thing in his own town. He looked outside to the children still playing, swinging wooden sticks like swords, much like he had done in his youth. The woman working away at cleaning fish and patching up houses, and the men fishing tirelessly and working honest jobs just to get by. It was simple. But so was his own hometown once upon a time. The town he'd swore he'd protect with his dying breath, but was not there when Horkos had destroyed it. That was why he had become a Lawbringer. Why he took his oaths. Because justice is unyielding, order unwavering, law immovable. If he was to fall, he would be standing, facing his enemy. As the words to flee left his very mouth, he bit down on his lip again and shook his head. "Forgive me, I spoke with the venom of weakness. I was ordered to save this province, and with my last breath I will do it, with or without the Legion." The river that the village used to fish on cut between the two provinces. If Horkos was to return, it would be by this river, and they would more than likely land in Kawamachi, for there were so few to defend it they could claim the village with little effort. So it would be here that he made his final stand. The villagers returned his armor, and after taking up his weapon, he marched to the shoreline where the boats would likely land. Many Nobushi followed, asking to assist him. "We have traps we can lay, flame traps that will slow their movements." "They will know of them," Richard responded, "and even were you to set them, the moist ground and river tides would smother your fire before it makes an impact. No, but I will teach you a better way." And so through the night he instructed, and the Nobushi and Aramusha worked, following every order the dragon gave. He would march here and there, assisting where necessary, but disciplining no one. Not even among the tireless work of the knights had Richard ever seen such fierce determination and obedience. The morning broke with the sound of cheers and roaring. Richard marched out onto the shore to see 5 ships approaching, a forward vanguard of Imawa. On board were samurai and Horkos warriors, all cheering, shouting, and roaring to terrify the peasants. They leapt from their boats, Shugoki and Orochi in the front, with a pair of shamans in close proximity, wearing the colors of Horkos, all of them. The villagers trembled and backed away, but the dragon did not move. He stared them all down, and just as the warriors began to raise their weapons, they vanished in an eruption of light and fire. Explosions shook the beach. Shrapnel and fire erupted with each step they took, as hidden explosives sent the Orochi and Shugoki falling to their knees, and the shamans, what was left of them, fell in pieces all among the sand. The villagers watched, as if it was the black dragon breathing down fire upon his foes, who fell before his vengeful spirit. With that, the dragon charged with a roar of valor, and the Nobushi and Aramusha followed. The Horkos soldiers hesitated. They knew not where the mines were, and feared stepping around them. But the Nobushi and Aramusha and dragon knew the mines' locations, knew where was safe and where was not. With them holding the advantage in movement, they cut through the Horkos warriors with a bloodlust that rivaled on the sadistic. Any other ships that landed behind the first few were unaware of the mines and tried to join the battle, only to meet the same fate as their predecessors. The advantage had won them time, but the number of mines was dwindling, and the dragon held out his hand to his followers. "Return to the village! I will face these savages myself!" The Nobushi and Aramusha looked in awe at the dragon, but did as he instructed, and retreated to the village line. Richard pointed his poleaxe at the few Horkos and Imawa samurai remaining. A few, emboldened by seeing only one enemy to face, charged him, a raider and a Tsanhu of Horkos. The dragon roared. The raider swung his axe, but was blocked by the Lawbringer's own. He used the leverage to swing the raider around and slam him to the sand. He then raised up his leg and crushed the raider's head with a boot stomp to his skull. The Tsanhu swung his mighty sword only for the dragon to evade and then impale the warrior on his poleaxe. Rushing him backwards, he then ran him back towards the minefield and jumped away as the exhausted Wulin fell onto a mine and vanished in a cloud of blood and guts. "You who stand accused," he shouted, "I am your final judgment. Come, face me, you cowards!" But only one Horkos warrior stepped forward now. The champion Astria had sent to lead this assault. It was known by only a handful that when Holden Cross returned from his pilgrimage and became the Griffin, there were other soldiers who were inspired by him. Holden founded an order of knights called the Order of the Griffin, who all trained as Holden did, taking up bardishes and swearing oaths to learn from all 4 factions and become greater themselves. But not all of the Griffins stayed true to Holden's ideals or his position. And standing before the dragon was one such Griffin. A Griffin who had left Holden and joined with Horkos. His name was Rowan Filtek. "There is no law in war," Rowan argued as he marched towards the dragon. "A lawbringer like you is a bygone relic of what is wrong with Ashfeld and its legions. To think there could be order in wartime. To try to invoke law and justice where there is none. The only law here is the law of the jungle. The mighty consume the weak, and to pretend otherwise is foolishness. It's the idealistic chatter of old fossils." Rowan charged, and the griffin met the dragon in mortal combat. Rowan was more quick and evasive, swinging his bardiche in large circular strikes meant to catch Richard off guard, but Richard was stalwart, parrying and deflecting blows that would have sent him staggering. Rowan was getting angry as he could not break through the defense of Blackthorne. "What law can you hope to uphold when all that surrounds you is chaos?" he bellowed. "You're an idealist in war, and when you die, your ideals fade with you." He swung the bardiche in a mad swing. Richard roared and threw down his poleaxe, grabbing the bardiche by the blade and swinging it aside. Rowan gasped, following the path of the throw, only to be grabbed around the throat by Richard, who clutched his neck in a vice-like grip. "In war, I am peace," the dragon hissed. "In chaos, I am order. In vice, I am law. In sin, I am justice. I am the Lawbringer. I am a dragon, and you are a traitor!" It took no effort for the dragon to crush the throat of his foe and send him thrown into the sand. The Horkos warriors watched in stunned amazement as their leader fell. The man on that beach was no human. He was a dragon, a symbol of order, a defender. He picked up his poleaxe again and raised it. "Flee from my presence, or join your fallen commander in hell." Legends of the Black Dragon spread throughout the mire within weeks. The Iron Legion, currently fighting elsewhere, believed that rumors of a Lawbringer having fought back a Horkos vanguard led by a fallen griffin, all on his own, sounded preposterous, and yet somehow reassuring. The Empress Ayu, learning of the brave efforts of Richard Blackthorne, came to Kawamachi to see the dragon for herself. Now none are quite sure what the two discussed or what was said between them. But when she left, the Empress made a shocking proclamation. Shofun Province would now have a new daimyo, a black dragon sent from heaven, and thus the first knight who would become a daimyo of a province, and the first lawbringer who would be loved by the mire.